Okay, so we've got a few new people today, and we've got, I invited Chris Bledsoe because we were talking about smoke photographs. For people who don't know, there was, Jeff is here. Jeff, you can maybe start. Let's talk a little bit about top of the mountain where you see
Okay.
smoke, and then we'll go to other photographs that have been taken of smoke photographs. Go ahead.
Okay. When the energy first appeared, it was in the form of rolling smoke. It was very similar to rolling smoke, and when I say that, it was in just like a curtain. It was horizontal. So the top was rolling, and it was horizontal and went down to the ground. And it just kept rolling, just slowly rolling. So the diameter was probably, about a few inches, 6 inches around, and it just kept rolling. But you could see it all the way to the ground. So I've never seen that before. I've seen never that solid of a form of smoke. So little later on, when Marcel started experiencing that, it changed to what some people call shimmering lights. I called it flickering lights previously. And the smoke dissipated, and that's what I saw was the flickering lights. So I'm thinking that was a portal. Marcel put his hands into it. He was below center. The whole area of smoke was about 5 foot wide that I could see. It was about 5 foot high. So that's the area of it. When Marcel put his hands down through it, he had two, he mentioned that there was like 2 rectangles pressed into his hands, one in each hand. He turned around, looked at me, and told me that. But on the ground, there was a bunch of little lights, and I've never seen. They were actual clusters, like a cluster of, say, they weren't always perfectly in clusters of 4. But what I saw were several of these clusters of lights spread apart. I'm just saying about 6 inches apart. So these clusters of lights were about 5 foot wide, again, about as wide as the smoke, and about 2 foot deep. Now, Jan, I'm sorry. I got a sister named Jan, sorry. Jan mentioned he thought he saw some red lights in his hands, but it was so subtle that he wasn't sure about it. But when you're in in that kind of a space where things are happening, you do have to pay attention to the subtle things, and make a determination. Did it happen or didn't it? What is it? So I know one of the other guys said he saw blue in his hands. He was in this zone where the smoke was, and he had like a fluorescent blue tint on his hands. So I've seen that personally with the color green before. But so that's what I know. I didn't get pictures of it. I had a camera with me the whole time. I never turned it on.
Which hands did the red or blue appear in?
Jan, your mic is off.
I believe it was my right hand.
Okay. And the blue one?
He was looking at both his hands when he described that to me, that his hands were blue. So
okay.
they're the palms of his hands.
And Jan, you were down below, correct? You were farther down. It was Vahid and Jeff that were higher up on the mountain, right?
Yes.
Well, we brought Jan up later after Vahid had gone down. So that's when we tried to get the people up there to get in front of it. I had an indication that if we moved up to where the clearing was, if we moved up another 25 feet, there was more of a flat area where more people could gather. I directed everybody up there away from I don't know whether or not to call it a portal or not. you know, the smoke. And that's, I know Alfred's mentioned the smoke is sometimes an indication of a portal. And that's where I thought that, you know, that's where the whole telos thing, when Marcel put his hands in it, he might have put his hands through it, through the portal. Now, one other thing one other very significant thing to mention about this smoke area, you could not walk through it or you would fall off the cliff, you know, if you didn't go somewhere else, if you weren't transported somewhere. So, so it was positioned in an area where you could not walk through it. Just for, you know, I think that's noteworthy. It's significant. So Marcel, he was on his knees. He put his hands through the center of it and said there was like 2 rectangles being pressed into his hands.
Yeah, I just heard from him. He may show up. He said he may show up for a few minutes.
Okay. That'd be good.
Can you take over the screen now and show that one photograph you took in Wisconsin with the wall?
Okay.
And then I'll show some photographs. Maybe we can go to Alfred next.
Okay. So I haven't done this before, so I just hit the share button.
Yeah, the share button and your screen should come up.
Okay, Dex.
I'd like to show Jeff that clip on that what I talked to Chris via email. We're supposed to have a conference call today or tomorrow, but he calls it vapor.
Yeah.
I call it the displacement energy, but whatever you want to call it. But Jeff, you need to see it because I'd like your input on if it's similar to what you saw.
Okay, let's let Jeff show his first, and then we'll go to Alfred, and you can show your, this is the one in the meditation room with the smoke?
Yeah, and then I also have one that came in out in this field. The smoke goes by, and then the ship hovers by right after the smoke does.
Okay, so you cue those 2 up then, and we'll go to you next, and then I've got a lot of Chris Bledsoe's photographs that he provided me. And I've got one that was taken maybe 100 years ago that I'll show as well. So
yeah, and Chris made the comment that, because I said, Chris, this usually happens prior to contact, and he said yes. He goes, what I've experienced is that the vapor usually comes prior to contact with the elements, with the elementals, he calls them. I call them translucents, but he calls them elementals. So.
Okay, what are you drawing, Jeff?
Okay, this is just pointing out the wall. Do you see it?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, so this was I've seen fog walls form out in the desert, for instance.
Yeah.
And this was a little different though. This was like a shadow. I walked up. I was thinking this was back farther. I didn't think it was in front of this pole. You can see it's in front of the pole here. Yeah. So I could see this. I took a picture with a regular camera, and I couldn't. It didn't pick up with the regular camera. So there's a few things. Now, this was taken with an infrared camera. So it's interesting that I could see it, but the visible light camera didn't pick it up, but the infrared light did. Or the infrared camera picked it up.
You know what else is interesting is that. Prospectively, it's correct. If you go from right to left,
yeah,
the symmetry of the wall looks like the same height.
Right, it does. That's no, yep. And also, I walked back to this after I took this picture. I thought this wall was behind this pole here, and it's actually in front of me. I stopped at that pole, and I felt something then, but I didn't think it was significant at the time because I hadn't reached it yet. So when I walked away and I walked to the woods thinking I was in it then, I didn't feel anything. So, you know, that just is a note in my mind in the future. Pay attention to what you feel because I was standing right here.
So what did you sense?
I just felt it was just a very slight feeling of, I don't know, some energy. That's all I could feel. It was so subtle that I just noted it, and I didn't pay much attention to it at the time.
In the picture you show, it looks a little purple.
That's from the infrared camera.
But it was so
this
wasn't the right color.
Yeah, the color's off, and this
That's
is
pitch
also
darkness, right?
Yeah,
You're
this
shooting
is
in dark.
Yeah, this is 11 p.m. at night, so this is black. This is dark.
Very cool.
Could you give us an
Yeah.
idea of height? What we're,
Well,
yeah,
the height, I would say 12 foot right here. It's
Okay,
consistent.
thanks.
It's consistent all the way. And there's something else here. You see the shape? It's kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
there's like a flying saucer shape there. Okay, and this here isn't in the visible. None of this is in the visible. This is like a little orb or something right here. That is not in the visible picture.
Where's that again?
You see where my mouse is?
Yeah.
Right there. There's like a ball.
Oh.
It's about the size of it's behind the fence here. It's about the size of a muskmelon, right about
Cool.
here.
Cool.
And yeah, there's also a wave here. There's
Yeah,
a
you're
wave
right.
there that's similar to this shape.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't notice. I've seen that photograph a number of times. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there's a few things in here. So the wall is significant. Like I say, I've seen fog walls. I've never seen this was more of a shadow wall. So
So you say you didn't go through it because there's,
actually, I think I walked right through it.
but
He's talking about the one on top of the mountain.
Oh, okay.
Explain that again, why you didn't go
Okay.
through the fog on the mountain.
Um,
You would have been in the valley, right?
because you would have
Falling off
the fog. Yeah, you would have fell off the backside of the hill there. You know, I think it was purposely put there so people wouldn't walk through it.
Wow.
You couldn't access the backside of it.
Well, you would go into the abyss if you did.
Yeah, well, if it's a portal,
or the other.
you would. You might just.
Which is a good metaphor for saying you're going to plunge into the unconscious.
Yeah, one way or the other.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, that's, and later on we know that the telos appeared. So that's, you know, if you put two and two together, it's possible that that was a portal. Other things came out when we left. There may have been more on the mountain, more portals too.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Just for background, this is about midnight, correct? And
Right.
Enrique had gotten the message between 12 and 3 o'clock. This was all these events were going to take place. So this is about midnight. And the event, you're talking about the Telos event, was 4 o'clock in the morning. It was Enrique by himself to start with, where the entire mountain of Shasta lights up with all these lights, like there's a city on the mountain. That was 4 o'clock. And yours is about midnight, correct?
Yeah, it was probably 12:30. I think we got in the spot at 12:30. We
Okay.
left the site at 12. So,
Okay, so you can unlock the screen from the top, and then Alfred, can you show yours, and then I'll go to Chris Bledsoe's, unless he comes along here.
yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Thanks. Somebody's helping me out here. I like that.
So Alfred, can you go take control of the screen and show your clips?
Trying to figure out here.
Right at the bottom in the middle, there's a blue file folder there, share. So,
Right, but I put everything on iMovie. I'm just trying to figure out how the heck I get that. If I can reduce the size of the screen. Let's see.
you need to see all we need to do is see your screen, and then you can do whatever you want on your screen.
Right, I'm just trying to figure out how to get into my screen.
Yeah, you just go in the bottom there and click on share, and your screen should come up. There it is. Okay, we're seeing your screen now.
Yeah, but I need, let's see, why is it not? Hold on. How do I reduce you guys? Okay, so let's see.
Yeah.
It's going to take a minute to load. There's quite a bit on here.
Okay. So give us a heads up on what you're going to show here.
There's all kinds of stuff, but interesting. The other night, a little 18-inch being appeared through my doorway. There are 4 of them. I'll show you his face if you want to see him.
Yeah, we can describe what they look like, and so
Yeah.
people know what we're going to be looking at here, or who you're.
They're about 18 inches tall. They look, this is loading, so let's see. I just put this one on here. Just came through the other day. Hopefully I can get this figured out.
It's probably so slow, Alfred, because I guess you're recording this session.
No,
really
just
so. No, just desktop.
a lot of data
I
on
see a recording button on the upper left. That's why I asked.
That's Desta's recording. He's got his share screen icon. You can see it beside his.
I'm trying to convert this to a bigger picture for you guys to see. I can get to it.
And how long have you been doing this, Alfred? Not that
Been,
long, right?
been doing what?
Having experiences.
Oh God, since I was about 8.
Oh, okay.
Oh heck, what I do? Wait. How long have I been doing iMovie? Not not long. Not
But not
long.
long enough, right?
What happened to my file? What the heck? I just had it, didn't I? Oh, jeez. No, where'd it go?
Desta, let me know if you see Chris Bledsoe come on.
All right, I'm trying to change the structure of this, and it's not letting me change it. I did it earlier. Anyway, well, this is in the way. Okay, so let's see. So this is, see, this isn't going to work this way.
There you got there's full screen right now.
Yeah, I don't want to do it this way. I'm trying to change the format because it's jacked up.
Okay, is that your room there? That's the. What
No,
are you shooting with here?
that's a ship, but I'm trying to change the.
Are you using an ordinary camera?
Yeah, that's an actual ship that came in. You see that? But before that came in, let me try and stop it here. Let me go to full screen. Before it came in, this smoke, this vapor smoke or energy smoke came in before that. I'm going to play that for you so you could see it.
Yeah, and see if you can get me a freeze frame for down the road, a freeze frame of the smoke thing, so we can compare it to Chris Bledsoe's.
Yeah, this is not on the right. I'm trying to set this up. So
Was that a photo or is that a video? That ship.
It's a clip from a video, and I'm trying to change the format so you guys can see it better. But I don't know.
Well, we can see it good. Just go to full screen, and you can start and stop it with your space bar.
Right, but I'm trying to get them all on here so you guys can.
Let's do one at a time. Let's do this one because this looks pretty interesting. Looks like a big giant fish.
There's the face. There's a being. There's my door right here. Mouth, nose, eyes, cranial. And this is a being. He's about 17 inches, 18 inches tall.
And where's the door?
The door is right here.
Okay.
I got up and I shot it. I knew he was coming in. This is his head right here.
Okay.
And then that's the being. So, but this is the ship. And I'm going to show you if I can find the clip. It's really interesting to see the footage, but I don't know how I marked it.
How do you sense that it's coming in?
I wasn't, one of my colleagues was out walking in the field and he sensed it. He said, I feel him with me. And he just turned his camera on, and this mist came by, this smoke, and then the ship came by. And it's on this footage, but I got to go through this. I'll have it ready for you on Monday.
Monday, okay.
Here's a being that appeared in my meditation room. It looks like a mask of some sort. It's interesting that over the third eye, there's like an arrow, upside down arrow facing down.
Okay.
This is a being. He's looking to his right. It's very pixelated because we didn't have night vision at the time, so I had to oversaturate the footage, but you can see he's looking to his left.
Okay.
Yeah. You can see his cranial, his face, his neck, shoulder. And this right here, his whole chest was lighting up. This is the outside of the ship. See the wedge-shaped upside-down triangle?
Yeah.
Right here? See the face? There's a
Oh,
face.
yeah.
And this is a sphere underneath the ship. So, and then there's another being. You can see his mouth. Where is he? There he is. There's his mouth, his eyes.
What's that one there?
What's that?
What's that one there? It looks like someone with sunglasses on.
Yeah, it does. It kind of looks like the anaconda being that was in the desert in Chile, but no, that's his eyes. That's his eye sockets. He was looking at me. This is in my meditation room. This is also my meditation room, but what I did was I actually drew him out. You can see him. You see his arm. He's like he's sitting down. There's his leg. His foot's resting on something. He's holding something. You can see his face. There's one, there's another one there. There's one over here. There's one right here. See his two eyes?
Yeah.
I'll show it to you without me drawing. There's a draw without me drawing. There's an orb in the center. Let me go back to it. There's an orb in the center. And that's what I was focusing on. Then I looked around and I said, wait a minute. I mean, you can clearly see the structures of their faces, their heads. Right around there. There's his shoulder, comes down, his arm. You can see his leg right here, comes across.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got it resting on something, and then his hand is right here, and it's holding something, and they're looking at me. So that's in my meditation room.
And give me again how you know this is happening. How do you know when to shoot? Or because I see Marcella's here, and most of these people will describe the fact that they can sense when it's coming. So how do you sense when it's coming?
I feel a shift in the energy. Here's an orb. You can see her face. Here's her mouth, her nose, outside of her head. Here's her hair. Almost looks like a blue ribbon or bow in her hair. Do you see her? There's her neckline, her shoulder, her chin. You guys see it?
Yeah.
Yep.
You shoot with an ordinary camera?
Just my phone, my iPhone.
Your iPhone.
Yeah, I want to get to the footage. I'm trying to find, there's a hell of a lot of footage on here. Where is the smoke one? That's the ship.
The one with your ship, the triangular ship, that head in the middle is so clear. It looks very.
Yeah, he's looking through a viewing window. Yeah, this one here, or the one
Yeah,
where
that
Yeah,
one.
that one. Yeah.
That one's the most like unbelievably.
Oh, you guys got to see the clip. It's a trip because we actually went on the ship with these beings. It's an amazing story, but I'm just looking for, and I know it's on here. The clip. I thought I put it on here. If not, I'd have to go to my email and download it. But it's here. Let me see what this is.
Can't you just play that clip?
Wow, this isn't a clip. This is just the picture. I transferred pictures, but I have the clip, and I thought I put it on here. Let me see. I'm in a different format now, so I'm trying to. Let me see if I can change this format. No, that's not going to do it. Let's see. No. Oh, let's see. Why is it not coming up? I just worked on this the other day for you guys, and now I need to go back to the other format. Here's a being here. You can kind of see him. He's interesting. You really have to look. This is his chin, eyes, the top of his head. I mean, it's cut off. Side of his head, his neck comes down. There's something like a collar or something on his shoulder. You can see him. Long mouth, long chin.
Alfred.
Yeah.
You might share in the chat box the link to where you posted your YouTube videos, because that spaceship video you posted out there on YouTube.
Yeah, I posted the ship that we were on. It's this ship. It's amazing, but I want you guys to hear the sounds. I actually have it on here. I'm just trying to find. I had a friend of mine come over and do this. We spent like 3 hours doing this stuff, and I don't know why it's not letting me do it. Photo library, all events, movies. Well, let me do this. Let me go to, let me move this. I'll go to my email. Where's my email at? Let's see. So I sent Chris Bledsoe some stuff. Let's see what this is. Oh, that's from Chris. I need to go to Sense. How do you get out of this? Sent. Okay. Let's see. So let's see what this is. I don't think this is. This is a Jeff, when that smoke was in that meditation room. This arc portal came through, and this being came through. I kind of outlined him. You can see him because it's just distorted. But he's got an elongated face. He's got these sides. I don't know, something on the side of his head, and then this is his body here and his neckline.
Yeah.
But I want to show you the footage. I think I sent it to Chris. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Let's see what this is. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Now you see the orbs are just starting to activate, and then when the energy comes in, they just start coalescing with the smoke.
Yeah, this will have the smoke coming. Yeah, I remember this.
And then they coalesce, and then the orbs really pick up in speed, and the whole room feels like a displacement of time. It's an electrical charge. It's really interesting. You can see.
And the thing in the front there, can you explain that again? The sort of the orange thing there.
Oh, yeah. So that's a singing bowl, a puja table.
Yeah, I have a Vedic puja, Sanskrit puja table that I set up, ceremonial table.
And I recognize the mantra. That's one of Greer's.
Yeah, I don't really use that anymore. I do different ones, but that's one of them.
Yeah, there's the smoke is pretty good. That's similar to Chris's. I'll be showing you in a sec.
Yeah, and that ship I showed you, there's smoke that came in prior to that ship. I just have to find the footage for it, but it's really interesting. And I'll have it ready for our interview.
Okay.
Could you see the smoke with your eyes?
Partially, not as coherent as you can with the phone. But the orbs really start getting active. I mean, there's there's an articulated movement to them, and you can just feel it going through you. It was quite an amazing experience.
Okay. So we'll do this Monday. We'll get this all practice up a bit more, and we'll get it all together for people where they can all link them all together in the interview.
Yeah, I would like to show the ship one because I sent it to Chris. Okay. It's just a short clip, and we lost a little over 2 hours of time on this one. That's not it. But since we're all on here, we might as well. And I know I sent it to him. There's that ship, but where's it at? Now this is just me holding the camera to my computer because the footage is so long. But you'll see at the bottom here a ship flashes in. It was during the day. Something told me to point the camera, see the tree line, comes into the left, and it rematerializes in the center. Then there it is. And you'll see it in the center.
Yeah.
And it changes colors.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, but I mean, the colors are like a vibrant orange. It was just really beautiful. So there's a face. Where is this one? I want to show you. There's that one. Oh, here it is. Okay. Listen to the monkey sounds. These sounds come in right before And I'm holding up the camera to my phone to the computer.
Please illuminate for us again. Oh my God.
The ship's already there. This went by.
Very bright. Get in there, right there.
It comes in over here. We'll see it.
So you're holding a camera that you're going to show the spaceship on by pushing it to your computer
I
screen.
have my phone to the computer. Watch to your right. When I say really bright, watch it flash in. There it is. See it? There's the ship. You'll see a viewing window here shortly with the being in it. And he's like sparking. It's probably 15 feet from us. We had no idea it's there. We have EMF. There's the being right there inside the ship. And then 3 of them come out of the ship and take us aboard. But we lost that time. So they're actually blocking the front of the ship. They're right there in front of us. You just can't see it on this footage. You can see something moving in front of the ship. That's them.
Could you see it clearly?
Oh, you can see it clearly. Look at this at night when they send it to you. You can see him. His silhouette. He's blocking the ship, looking at us. We had no idea they're in front of us. And then they walk away and they take us aboard. So this was at 9 o'clock at night, and we thought we left right after we heard the sounds, and it was 2 hours later, 2.5 hours later. There's a viewing window. You can see something blinking off the chest of the beam. There he is, and that's it.
It looked like a double triangle pointed upward at one point on the ship.
Almost like a tetrahedron, yeah. We couldn't see the top of the ship, so it's hard to say what the top looked like, but yeah. I don't know how to get out of the share here. How do I
Top of the screen, it'll be the green, stop the share, right at the top in the middle of the screen.
Okay.
Okay, I'll show some of Chris's and we'll sort of link in because you're in contact with Chris. I've been in contact with Chris for almost 8 years now. I'll give you a little bit of background just so you can see who this guy is, because some people may not know who this guy is. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just go through these photos really, really quick because he would be here. Let's go. He has this unbelievable ability to build things. He builds cars, and he does it like he builds planes. I said, "You build it from a you know, a planner?" He said, "No, I just build it." And so here's one of the smoke ones. Now, what the thing is with Chris, there's an awful lot of university people coming and government people coming, and he has such a high level of contact that they're trying to figure out. They're trying to watch him to see how this contact is being done. So this is, I think there was some professors or people from a university, and they had spirit boxes and all sorts of stuff, and they were doing this sort of stuff. Here's another one of the things you can see, this sort of smoke stuff that they're picking up. And this is near this burning tree, which I'll explain in a minute. Here's another one, sort of so you can see a lot of people, they're all sort of working on this and they're doing experiments and stuff, and this stuff appears. This is, he got a napkin from Camp David, and that's triangle. This is who I believe he's sort of dealing with, the Guardians. If you see Chris's painting, it appears in the crop circle. It's exactly the same being. If you see his painting of it, it's identical. So I always say, here he builds motorcycles. He has this sort of unbelievable ability. Here's an orb photograph of a, is that a video thing? No, okay.
He sent me that. It's not a
Here he
video.
is there. He had this vision. He was taken and shown this vision, and he calls it the message. They say, you have a message is yours to carry, and he comes back. He sort of is very upset. He digs up the backyard. He puts in a garden, and he puts in chicken coops, and he's sort of getting ready for whatever is going to happen. And this is what I want to sort of show. So you have these rings. This is 2008, and that's his older son who was actually with him when he got woken up in 2007. He has this experience at the Cape Fear River. This is Chris Jr. He's with him. Chris is gone for 5 hours. There's 3 objects appear, and the middle one comes out, and he's taken. He's on board the ship, and his son is in the bush, and these small beings have him pinned down in the bush. And as long as they're looking at him, he can't move. So these, just after the sighting, these rings appear near this tree, and I just want to show you the tree. This is what the object looked like. This is a video that somebody else took in Florida. He said that's exactly what this thing looked like. There's a video which I've played a few times. I just want to get, this is his camera. He got a brand new camera. It was $1,000 camera or something. Took one photograph of a UFO, and then suddenly the photographs all started to look like, we called them the melted photographs, where suddenly all the photographs turned out like this. And we actually sent it to, we actually inquired with the company that made it and said, can you explain why this is happening? And they said, oh, send the camera in, or we'll give you a refund. And we said, no, just explain why this camera is taking these weird photographs. You can't take photographs anymore. Here he is with his family. He's got the 4 kids. They're all now growing through university. And there's his guardian. That was a police artist sketch that was done in 2008. You can see the resemblance to the one that's in the crop circle. Here he is. The whole thing is being done in Hollywood. I think it may be a 5-year series to describe, because he's got so much material. They're going to use a 5-year series to go through this. This is this famous burning tree, and this is, you see these smoke photographs I'm going to show in a second. It all links into this burning tree. He has this tree. Warner Brothers wants to do $80 million movie on his experience, and the 2 scriptwriters from the movie say, and I think it was Mel Gibson wanted a sign, so the 2 scriptwriters said, Chris, we'd like a sign that we should do the movie. And Chris said, yeah, okay, whatever. And he sort of prayed. He didn't know what the heck to do. And the next day, there's this tree in the backyard where those crop circles, where those rings were. They had appeared under this tree, and the tree had been dying. All the tops of the tree was falling off and stuff. And then his wife looked out and said, what's going on with the tree, Chris? And it looked like bottle rockets coming from the bottom of the tree, shooting up into the air. So they went out to see what was going on. And when they get to the tree, it starts on fire. And there's like a hole, where a branch breaks off. And there's sort of a gap there, and, squirrels will put their nuts in there and stuff. So the burning is inside the tree. Tree is not damaged. The tree is completely okay today. I'm taking this photograph. It burns 3 times in 6 hours. It burns. You stick this hose up into the tree. This fire out inside the tree. It's actually filmed on, his son films it on an iPad. So you have these 3 burnings, and then they tell the scriptwriters, oh, this weird thing, it been raining for 2 days, and the tree started on fire last night. And they say, thank you, that's what we need. And they decide they're going to go ahead with this movie. So I'm taking this photograph, looking up into the tree where it had burned, but the tree is completely okay. So here he's building planes. Here he is in the NASA room where the astronauts go in. Apparently, there's only been 250 people in this room. So NASA is one of the agencies that's watching him at this high level of contact. Here's some of his orbs. Here's some of the photographs. Now I'm gonna skip out of this one. I'm gonna go to the other one. Here's the smoke photographs. Okay, so this is the one you've seen before. This is the one where I think these university people were there. It comes on here in a sec. Okay, and this one here, Desta and I went to, there's a collection of photographs at the University of Manitoba at the archives. And we went there. They were having I think that's where this photograph is coming from. It's a collection of photographs taken with, they have, I think it's best to correct me if I'm wrong, there's 50 collections of spiritualist material. There was a very, very famous spiritualist in the early 20th century in Winnipeg. I think he was a doctor or something, and they would do these seances and had all these photographs of different things. And this is one of the photographs. I'm not sure if it's from that collection or the other collection. This was, they had a display of all these cabinets, and this was, you see this sort of thing where a being is coming through the smoke. But this photograph is maybe even 100 years old, and you can see the paperclip on it there with. So I just found that, and so I'm going to go back to the university and try to find these photographs, because most of them have the ectoplasm. So you remember back in the days of the spiritualists, the beings would come through this ectoplasm, which almost is, it's almost like the phenomena has changed from ectoplasm to this smoke type stuff, because both Alfred and Jeff are talking about the being comes through the smoke, or it uses the smoke to enter into the physical world or whatever. So here is the tree. This is the famous burning tree, and you can see all these people. That this is even have Chris has healed an awful lot of people. I won't get into that, but he was actually getting a bunch of people coming to North Carolina, outside of Fayetteville, where he lives, and they wanted to be healed. I mean, there's even a woman from Winnipeg went to see Chris to get a healing, and they would take, actually people would give him cotton clothes, and they would stick it in this hole where this fire had taken place, and then they would take the cotton back, and they would wear these shirts, hoping to be cured from cancer. And Chris, I don't think he's on yet today, but he actually had another woman who was healed of cancer. He tells that story. He's got a lot of these weird stories. So a lot of people show up here either to do research, film the tree, to find out what's going on. It all centers around this weird tree that sort of first fell apart, half the tree died, and then all these things. So you see this smoke stuff is appearing around this tree. Here's another one of the ones. And as Chris says, this is when the being is taking place. I think he's saying there's actually a being moving in front of the camera at the point where this photograph is being taken. Here's another one. He actually loses the house, and he moves to he lives on a small lake type pond thing. And this is, I think, is the photograph taken at the lake. So the phenomena has followed him to the lake, and he can tell when this is coming. He takes these photographs as it's coming in, and that's why I was asking Alfred, do you know when it's coming? Because there's a very famous story told that Chris tells with John Alexander, who's the guy who did the non-lethal weapons, who was at Skinwalker Ranch and stuff. And John goes there to check out Chris Bledsoe. He hears about Chris Bledsoe. He goes there, and they are actually standing near the Cape Fear River. They're leaning against the car. Chris's daughter and John Alexander's wife are sitting inside the car. And all of a sudden, Chris said, "They're here." And John said, "What do you mean they're here?" "They're here. They're here. They're around us." He said, "Well, how do you know that?" He said, I just know they're here." And John, as he puts it in a whole chapter of a book, he said, suddenly they're looking up, and this object just suddenly appears in the sky and goes sailing across the sky. And John said it was one of the most dramatic things. And he's followed shaman around and studied UFOs since 1947. And he said it was the most dramatic thing he'd ever seen. And it was this sort of thing that if you've been one with the craft, like if you interact with the craft, you felt the vibration, so that when the craft, that's what Chris sort of explained to me, when the craft is in the area, he can feel the vibration. He knows when they're here. So he senses this, and so it's followed him to the lake. He's taken that. Here's another one at the sort of like a daylight shot.
Hey, Grant, in that previous picture, there was a face looking at you up in the northwest quadrant. You see it right where your arrow is.
Yeah, Chris has a lot of that. We may, whenever, one week we'll get him on here and he'll get his photograph. He's got probably thousands of photographs. And he has the same thing that Alfred was showing, is you have the orb, where it'll appear in an orb, and you'll see the face in an orb. So here you have the face sort of appearing in the smoke. But he's a lot of photographs of orbs, very close orbs, and he has actual sort of entities. Actually, there's one in a garage. I don't know if I have it here, but there's one actually in a garage where this thing is clear as day in the middle of this garage where this thing appears.
You know what it reminds me of?
What's that?
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Remember at the end when they opened the Ark of the Covenant,
Okay.
and all that smoke and beings came out of it, and these faces and things flying around, these
Yeah.
spirit forms. That's what.
So maybe that's where they got the idea. It's the old idea that they put this stuff fictionalized, because that's what they're doing, like with Chris's and other stuff. You take it to Hollywood and you sort of fictionalize the series, and it people get it, and it's not direct. It doesn't threaten your rational analytical brain. It just sort of is entertainment, and you're getting the message indirectly as to what this is all about. Here's another one. Here's the burning tree. You can see the actual opening in the tree there. That's where it all burned. The outside, there was no burning on the outside of the tree. It was all done inside this tree. And it did it 3 times in 6 hours after being hosed down twice. The third time, the wife said she went out at 3 o'clock in the morning, and she was still going to university, and she said it was burning again, and she was by herself, and she said, I can just imagine this tree's not going to fall over. I'm going to get killed by this tree, and they won't find me till the morning. And she put out the fire for the 3rd time in the middle of the night. So you can see this smoke that appears. Here's another one, not that clear, but they're doing a lot of photographing around this. This is a daylight photograph. This was just, Chris told me this was just taken recently. Not sure in the last couple of weeks or last month or so. It's a daylight photograph of the smoke type stuff appearing.
Hey, Grant.
Okay.
Mark Olson here.
Yes, Mark Olson. You know Chris Bledsoe?
I do.
Okay.
I actually was just also watching as we're going along here. My video's not popping up, but that's not a big issue. That doesn't, my image is not going to shock anybody. But I agree. The smoke has that feeling of the same thing that was in the Raiders of Lost Ark when they opened up the what do they call it, the great I can't remember what it's called, but it's
the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant. That's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks very similar to these type of things. The last images you showed, Grant, are they with this $1,000 camera that Chris has?
No, that camera I think that was the one that Tyler D, our friend Tyler D. So I remember him telling me the story where the NASA guy tells him he was photographing the tree and the orb comes around from the back of the tree. You remember that photograph? And that's when he bought that camera, because Tyler D, I said, Chris, why would you take 5 photographs of the tree in the middle of the night in the dark? He said, oh, Tyler told me to do that. He said, oh, he did. So he has the first photograph, there's nothing. Up to the 4th photograph, there's nothing. All of a sudden, this orb comes around from behind the tree, and he's been told to do this by this NASA engineer. So he's been buying different cameras. I think he does a lot with his cell phone camera. He's photographing, like a lot of the orb photographs. He's got a lot of photographs of orbs that come very, very close to him. And he had the one with the medals that people follow the medals. There's a photograph, and I would take me a long time to find it on here, but he sends me photographs all the time. So if you get in contact with Chris, if we get him on here, he's got thousands of photographs. And the orb flies by him. He sits 11 feet in the air and is dripping this metal off the orb onto his driveway.
What kind of metal was it? Do you know?
It looked like solder. You know how, remember in the old days when you'd solder something and the metal would fall onto the ground, it would splat on the ground? It looked exactly like a solder. And he actually scraped this stuff up, and they sent it to the government lab, and it didn't come up with anything unusual. But the key thing was that Chris was actually watching this thing as it flew by. So when there was all these stuff about the metal is being, I at one point said it was being shot out by the UFO, and he said, no, it's being dripped. It's dripping. He was insistent. And then he finally told me the story of the fact that this orb had flown by him. So he's a kind of a unique figure. And so I think it's important. That's why we try to document like Alfred's story and the story at Shasta, is that if you're not experiencing the phenomena yourself, you watch the people who the phenomena is interacting with, and it doesn't make any sense to do anything else. Is that there are people like Alfred and Jeff and Chris Bledsoe, that the phenomena is happening around them all the time. And so what we do is try to document their stories so that we can learn something from what they're experiencing, because they have the ability, for whatever reason, to bring this phenomena in, or they've been chosen to do this, or whatever it is.
I was going to say, in one of those pictures you showed from Chris Bledsoe with the smoke, it is almost identical to one of the images that they show in Capturing the Light from Dorothy Isaac, one of her stills.
Oh,
That exact same with the little dots, and it's when there's multiple dots with little streamers. Yes.
wow. Interesting. I would imagine that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm gathering smoke photographs, and so that's why I'm trying to get, like, have you got it there? Oh, you got it's in the book. Okay. And give me a background on her. Who is she? Oh, your mic is off.
Dorothy Isaac is the woman that did the 30,000 feet of Super 8 film.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, and she lived in Canada, just above Washington State, and they did a documentary on her, Capturing the Light, and then there's the book that's even better, same guy, Beings of Light. And I was just going to try to find that picture, but there's a picture that looks almost identical to what you just showed from Chris Bledsoe. We'll see who can find it first. I mean, this is one similar, but this isn't as good. There's one better than that. But there's one that literally looks almost identical to Chris Bledsoe's picture. And so, and it might be in the documentary and not in the book, but anyway, when I find it, I'll show it.
Okay, maybe I could try to show one other thing here, because we're talking about this idea that the beings are sort of entering our realm from their realm through smoke, through ectoplasm, through all this kind of stuff. I'm doing a presentation in Toronto, and so let me take over the screen. I'll just show you. There's one interesting slide that I show here. Let me get this. This is, when we get into this is why I was really interested in this whole thing is, oh, come on. This here is, oh, come on. I'll get it yet, hang on.
Come on, Grant, you should be able to get it by now.
Is that the princess there?
Okay, this is
No.
Ron Pandolfi,
Yeah.
who is the, can you see it, the screen?
Yeah, I could see it.
Oh, okay, I'm getting some backfeed. I can't hear anybody, but anyway, this is Ron Pandolfi. That's his wife, who is Aaliyah Pandolfi. This is Kashmir Pandolfi, who is the daughter. And what the heck? Okay. And here's a video that I grabbed, and he called me a thief for grabbing this video. But here's him on a cruise ship going through the Panama Canal, and his wife asks him, "What have you got to say, Footman?" That's his sort of a code name. What have you got to say, Footman? And he plays this, he makes this statement here, which I thought was extremely significant, because he has been reported at times to be the top scientist at the CIA. Oh, and I got no sound. What the heck? But here's what. But basically, what he says in this video, and he gets caught on camera. That's why he's very angry with me that I grabbed this off his wife's YouTube channel. Is he said, people have always wondered what it's like to go into the next world. Soon, John, he's talking to this guy sitting beside him. The next time John goes to the desert, a few of us here will go from this world and into the next world and return again. And what they're talking about is this rumored portal, that they have some sort of portal technology, and they use these actuators. And you say, well, he's making it up. And I would say, okay, you're making it up, except for the fact that this daughter, who I think is about 6 in this photograph, or 5, she is 7 years old, and they have a guy online who's Joe Firmage, who's doing anti-gravity research in Salt Lake City. And at the end of the interview that they're doing with Joe Firmage, they asked this Kashmir, the young girl, they said, have you got any questions you want to ask Joe Firmage? And she said, yeah. So she gets on, and her one question is, Joe, how many portals do you have in your house? And that comes down to, they're telling her something. This is not some 6-year-old kid who's making this whole thing up. So you have this situation where this this girl is talking about it, and this guy also told us, this is Dr. Eric Walker from Penn State University. He's the former president of Penn State University. When we were confronting him about UFO stuff, he said, let me ask you a question. He said, what do you know about ESP? And the guy who was interviewing from Great Britain didn't have any answer. He said, look, unless you understand about ESP and how it works, you will not be taken in by the people who control this subject. Very few people understand how it worked. And in 1990, when this interview took place, we didn't know what he was talking about. But now we sort of understand this thing, that it's not as physical as you think it is. It's got to do with this ESP, with consciousness, with this kind of stuff. I have got some photographs here. This is the Shasta thing. This is the darn. Okay, I'm going to stop the share screen because I have no sound here, so it's not going to really help here. But this is, to me, is an important aspect. Is we're starting to understand the fact that we are going we have different vibrations or different dimensions or whatever it is, and we're starting to learn from people at Shasta and from these other people how this is taking place. And most people sort of in the physical world think it's like some flying saucer that lands and this alien gets out. And what you're seeing from the smoke, from the ectoplasm, from all the reports that we're getting is it's much more complex than that they sort of come in for a second and it's very sort of hard for them to get in. It's very hard for us to pick it up. But we are starting to learn that it's not as physical as we think it is. I have lost my sound, so.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You need to shave though, Grant.
You're not muted, Grant.
Okay.
Desta.
Okay, I've got sound back now. I lost all my sound there.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Is it? Yeah. Anyway.
Hey, Grant, can I show a couple real quick clips that might be interesting for everybody to see? Grant, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah, no, just barely, yeah.
Can I show a couple of quick clips? I think
Yep.
it'd be interesting to see.
Yep.
Well, I need to go to my email. How did I do that before? How do I go into my email account? How do I minimize this darn screen? Okay. Email. Okay. So he just sent these back to me. And I have a bunch of the smoke stuff too, but this is, where is it at? Let's see if it comes through. The heck is that? Want that?
If anybody wants a new story, there's a few new people here. If you want to tell your story, put your hand up and Desta will.
Phil has a story.
What's that?
Phil didn't get to talk last time or the time before.
Okay, Phil, go ahead and talk while we get this set up here. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll give the Cliff Notes version. My experiences started when I was young. They started in the form of sleep paralysis. They slowly progressed to where I started having out-of-body experiences. And Probably the most prolific one was when I was about 18 or 19. I pulled an all-nighter in college, not on drugs, via coffee, and came home and was extremely tired, lethargic, decided to take a power nap, crawled in bed. I started getting all these vibrations, kind of started in my head, worked its way down to the feet, and build up to what I call resonance. And then all of a sudden, I felt like something was different and opened my eyes, and I was floating into my bedroom wall. And I thought I had died. I was trying to swim back to my body. I jerked, sat up in bed, and my heart was racing. I ran upstairs and told my mom, and later on she came back and told me that, oh, that's the occult. And like, I didn't really feel like it was evil, but that sort of ended my stint with Christianity, and I kind of went on my own path. But had a lot of those experiences. I've never gone to astral realm, so to speak. I've always been inside the house. I floated outside, float around the house, and then usually things will turn dark, and then I'll end up in the dream world. I've been touched, had my name called out, and I told this story to a couple of people, but one time I was in deep meditation, and I came out of it, and I was standing in my bedroom, and was getting ready to go to sleep, and something walked through me. Actually, it felt like an entity or energy move right through me. And I don't know, for those of you who haven't experienced that, that's a little unnerving. I've learned a lot since then. I haven't had a lot of UFO experiences. Again, I've mostly just been touched, had my hair pulled when I'm laying in bed. I have my name called out. There is one last thing, and I'm giving you the really abbreviated version because I know a lot of people want to talk. And I mentioned this to Paul and Mika, and I'd say probably about a dozen people or so that I've mentioned this to. It seems like about 60 to 70% affirm that they have the same lasting experience, and that is when I'm still and my mind is still, and even right now when I'm looking at the camera, and in between my eyes and the monitor everywhere, it almost appears, or it does appear, like everything is pixelated. And I know I'm not alone in that, and I know that other people are experiencing that too. So I don't know what it means. I'll be talking to people, and then all of a sudden I'll see like a bright star appear over their shoulder. So if I'm ever talking to any of you and I all of a sudden kind of look to the side, just, I'm still listening to you. It's just something's got my attention. You have to excuse me, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not good in front of audiences, but so I'd like to hear if anyone else is at least seeing the pixelation where it looks like reality is almost like distorted. So I'm going to mute myself and try not to talk anymore.
Somebody's got a question here. Can you explain the pixelated thing again? Somebody's asking about that.
It's like these little tiny particles are vibrating. And it's not the liquid in your eye. I mean, sometimes I'll blink and I'll see little bubbles, and that's just whatever it is on top of your eye surface. But it's almost like it's these subatomic particles or whatever that are just constantly vibrating. If I ever get in a dark room, I don't see pitch black. I can never see pitch black. I can never be in a dark room. Because there's always color. And I know I'm not alone in that. So You know, it's
Yeah, I would say,
the last.
Philip? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that struck me when you said about seeing things pixelated, people who have had a serious dosage of radiation will start seeing pixelated or sparkles through their eyes. You know, it's like I forget exactly what that's called. There's a name for that. But I'm not saying you had a severe encounter with physical radiation, but it does relate to that. And there is the understanding that there is such a thing as psychophysical radiation that emanates from the other side and into our view. And I'm just wondering if it's not connected to that. I'm just mumbling out loud here, throwing out my reaction. So that's my reaction.
Yeah, I see some.
Yeah,
I see some.
okay, go ahead.
Before current. Mine are more like squiggly, white, bright lights, lines, like unarticulated, zigzagging everywhere, and then the ships come in.
Mm.
I've got that footage ready if you guys want to see it.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Get this out of the way.
There's a
And
couple of people.
I found some seance photos I'll show.
There's a couple of people waving their hands. CES and Amour may want to say something.
Okay, let's go with that first.
I had a question.
Oh, okay.
When these beings walk through you or touch you, do you feel like vibrations wherever they touch you? And I also wanted to say, yeah, I agree with you. I tend to see the same thing when it's really dark. I see it's like white pixelated fog everywhere, but it happens most in the dark rooms.
Wow.
Yeah, when the one being walked through me that one time, I wasn't prepared for it, and I kind of fell to my knees. I worked my way back to the bed, and then of course I asked for white light to fill the room, and you know, only positive beings can remain, and kind of that mantra, because it scared me, but it zapped the energy right out of me, and I've only had that experience once.
Wow. And who else had their hand up here?
Marcel. I'll unmute him.
You're unmuting me? Okay.
Marcel, go ahead.
I experience the same thing as far as the pixelation when I'm doing contact work. It's amazing, but when you get to a certain level of coherency or the energy level increases, I tend to see that pixelation everywhere. And the first time I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. I'm seeing like energy everywhere. And it gets really intense to the point where not only do I see it in front of me, but then I see it shimmering, and it's tantamount to like, and I think I mentioned this in the past, is when the moon is shining through a bunch of leaves and it's just shining everywhere. Usually I get the pixelation, and if it's really intense, that follows through. But I get that pixelation whenever we're doing contact work and it elevates to a certain level. Most of the time I don't. If I get into like a meditative mode, if I'm sitting outside in the daytime on my lake and I'm meditating, I see the little pixelation. It's not all the time. It's only when I achieve a certain level of, I guess, level of consciousness. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, when I see that, I feel like an imbalance, like I'm lightheaded, kind of off a little bit. Do you get that feeling, a sensation?
No lightheadedness. It's just it's the vivid pixelation. It's almost like you have something wrong with your eye when you have, you got those little dots that sometimes you see, only multiplying by 1,000. They're like very small though, not to the point where it's affecting your vision where you're going to trip, but just enough. There's very faint all in front of me. Almost like the Matrix thing, but not that intense, just very subtle. That's what I get.
Right.
And when, Marcel, let me ask you, you had the experience in New Zealand. You've done a lot of CE5 stuff around the world. Can you relate that the pixelation or the how the being comes through when you had that being in New Zealand right beside you there?
Yeah, that's the being was almost similar to what I see with the pixelation, but it was really dense. So the first time I experienced that which was New Zealand, it was almost like a bunch of little Christmas lights. I don't know, maybe about 2 foot tall and maybe about 1 foot wide. They were coming towards me. It was kind of floating, but it's actually floating, kind of walking. But they were faint. Not where it's like a bright little Christmas tree coming towards you, but they were faint lights, and it was kind of morphing, shimmering. Not where everything was pixelated, but just that area, and I saw 2 of them as they were approaching towards me. But it was enough that my sight could pick them up, and it shocked me. It was a pleasant shock because that was the first time I experienced it, and I think that the fear that normally one would have upon that first experience was somewhat dissipated by the fact that I had a couple friends next to me that were experiencing the same contact work. So I felt a little comfortable being next to them. But then when I opened up and allowed it to happen, the intensity of the light brightened and got close to me before I was touched.
Wow. And they did what? They pulled your finger, or what did they do?
A gentle squeeze. I had my hands out in this position, and all of a sudden I felt ever so gentle, just like this, a little squeeze, and which is really emotional. It's really a powerful experience. And then I saw the other little light in front of me and come to my other hand, and I can't recall now if it was my middle finger or my 2 fingers. It's the most gentle squeeze you ever felt, just enough to just let you know we're here. And that was it. And then they both kind of just backed off. And that was my very first contact experience. It was super profound.
Fascinating. Okay, Alfred, we're ready for you now.
Okay. Am I unshared yet?
No, you're still not. You haven't got the screen yet. Take the screen.
Marcel, what color were those Christmas lights?
They were yellow to white, somewhere in between there. Faint, very faint.
Am I on the screen?
No, not yet. But you're on the screen, but not your screen.
I hit shared. Right.
There it is now. You just took it now.
Okay. Anybody got any ideas what that is?
Wow.
Watch.
That's pretty cool.
It's not done. It's like orbs line up, and then it becomes transparent towards the end.
That's a guy from Star Wars with the thing.
Yeah, isn't it?
What do you call that? The
saber.
The lightsaber.
Yes, glowing saber. That's pretty cool.
Like, yeah.
How often do you meditate? How often do you do this?
About 2 hours a day. So it's a longer one. It goes all the way through it. I want to show this one to you. This is this is actually an encounter that I had, if it's going to come through. Let's see, with the being, but he came through this way first. Maybe that's not going to work. What's this one? I don't know what this one is. This happened. The room became real misty, and my hand started to light. You'll see it like shimmering.
Wow.
I don't have a flashlight on it. You'll see it like it starts to like just disappear. You'll see like lights coming off of my fingers, and it's like really wild. The room gets all full of this mist, this smoke. You see the reflection off of my hand?
And you could see your hand lighting up?
Yeah. But I couldn't see the reflection like that. I could just see my hand that was kind of glowing.
Yeah, you can see the light coming off it there.
Yeah, it's kind of like that when they take photographs of a leaf because they've electrified the leaf.
Oh, yeah. Kirlian photography?
Yeah, Kirlian photography.
But you
Are you holding on to a battery wire, Alfred?
It's my phone. Yeah. You can see like an aura or something.
Or are you scuffling your feet on the rug, and are you charged with electrostatic energy? You know, what the hell kind of fake were you doing here?
sitting on the ground. Yeah, so that's interesting.
Alfred, there was no light source at all? You're not have a light on a phone or anything?
I do have a light on the phone, but you look in the background, you see smoke. I mean, where's the smoke coming from? You know, I'm not creating the smoke. And that's the only time that's ever happened. There was one I wanted to show that's really interesting, but for some reason it didn't come through. But
Were you feeling anything in your hand?
yeah, I felt electrical charge.
Well, there you go. By the way, the previous video he just showed with the lightsaber,
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Alfred had shared that with me last week, and I played it several times. And what it actually looks like at times is this kind of snake-like movement is composed of a stack of octahedrons, you know, or diamond shapes, if you will, all in a vertical direction. And I counted in one of the frames, I counted there were 7 of them.
Orbs?
Orbs, but they had a diamond shape. Each one had a diamond shape. And I thought, gee, there are 7 chakras in the body. Maybe this Kundalini yoga snake energy showing up in Alfred, at least in the outer situation. And now it's coming into his hand. So, I don't know, something's going to zap you pretty soon, you know?
So I was standing in my room about 5 in the morning. Something told me to get up, and this is what happened. I mean, this isn't dust. Watch what happens. Look at this orb coming right to me. I mean, I get this stuff all the time. Yeah, it never ends. It's kind of like Chris's stuff. It's just, I have thousands of this stuff. But we'll go over that, I guess, Grant, when we do our interview.
Are you mostly using your cell phone for the pics?
Just my cell phone, and then when I'm in the field, I use a Canon camera, video camera, and I have a night vision camera now that I use.
Grant, Robert is someone here with his hand up that wants to say something. I think he's friends with Marcel, and he's a Rama person.
Okay, Robert. Oh yeah, Robert Williams. Is that what we got?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Robert.
How to use this? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. I apologize for coming in late. I was otherwise occupied. But yeah, I came into ufology way back. Well, for me, it's way back in the 80s. I was at UC Berkeley, and I had an interest in Project Blue Book, and there was something called the Whole Life Expo. I think it's called now Life something Expo. But I went and saw Stanton Friedman. I did a lot of ufology. I tried to join the LA MUFON group to go out to Groom Lake because I heard about Bob Lazar stuff. But after a couple of years, I kind of left it alone. But somehow I was brought back to Dr. Greer's work, the C5. I was watching YouTube, that NPR thing he did, the hearing that he did, or that he was a part of, where all those people testified, you know, and I was just drawn in. I was like, well, who's this Stephen Greer guy? Because he has a lot of credible people who aren't, you know, from the tinfoil hat wearing crowd. So I got into it, and then I read about Dr. Greer. He invited us to be ambassadors. I'm like, well, what's that? Well, you can actually make contact yourself. And of course, then I became familiar with the C5 protocols, and I was very excited about that. I mean, I just love everything that C5 was about, or is about. So I hooked up with Peter Chan, you know, in the San Diego group, because I'm in Southern California, and Peter Chan and Cameron Herndon and the San Diego CE5 group, we went out to the location where they do their CE5, and I had my first actual real live CE5 with other bona fide CE5 members. Now that night, I just basically froze my tail off and listened to Cameron and Peter, you know, sing flash bulbs and all that sort of stuff. I didn't see anything, and they said, "Don't worry, you will soon enough." And I just kind of said, "Okay." So I kept practicing, and then I was reading in the main CE5 Facebook page there was this guy named Joseph Burke who kept writing stuff about, you know, the history of Dr. Greer's work and how he's a part of it. And he talked about the Ramas. And he says, well, I remember him saying probably the group that's getting the most significant contact or visual contact are the Ramas. And I said, oh my gosh. He said, but they're Spanish speaking, you know, and I said, well, how can I, and I asked him, well, how can I hook up with the Ramas? And I just put the intention out there. And then somehow I ran across Enrique's group. And Enrique was going to start that year for the first time. He was going to bring Mission Rama to English speakers. So I said, oh my gosh, universe delivered. Here's my chance. So I went up to Shasta, and I'd also met someone in the C5 group. Her online name is Linda Starcy. And it seems like she was just having absolute incredible contact. So I messaged her, we developed a friendship, and we planned to meet up at that first group. And sure enough, she came. And then it was the second night, it was Saturday night. She and I were sitting out underneath the stars, and she says, you know, she was telling me how she does this. It's just real easy. You just kind of like quiet your mind and just ask them to come. And then I remember it was like about a minute after she said that, I looked up in the northwestern sky, and I saw a comet streak by. I was like, wow, there's a comet. And then about, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds right after that, for the first time with my own naked eyes, I saw a craft. She goes, there it is. And I was like, at that point, I was hooked because I had never, ever, ever seen anything like that in my entire life. So it's a life-changing thing. I mean, I grew up in Judeo-Christianity. We do prayers and all that sort of stuff. But I'd never seen anything manifested like that, you know, to where common people like myself, you know, who rely on their five senses, are actually able to see something that is out of what most people experience, you know. And then, so I was very happy with that experience. And then the next night, I went out with, I don't think Marcel was there, but Tim Ford and a group of us went up to Panther Meadow. And we did another CE5 there. And that night, we saw 15 crafts. I mean, it was like a flotilla. It was just absolutely awesome. So I consider myself, I don't really religiously practice or do CE5, but the benefits I've gotten from it, I prefer the more spiritual approach. You know, the reason why I do it is more for spiritual reasons. I'm not all that much interested in exposing what governments are doing and all that sort of stuff. I believe it's all about the journey within, you know, and developing consciousness. And I've gotten I consider the CE5 Rama community my spiritual community. And it's taken me to look at everything that is around us with different eyes. You know, I feel I've taken that blue pill, you know, as the Matrix described, and I'm not looking back, you know. I believe it's all about love. And to me, consciousness is love, is God, is the universe. And it's all about realizing that we're one and that anything's possible, you know, if we just go within and open our minds to it.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I look forward to, I mean, a couple years ago, Enrique had told us that you were coming out to Shasta, and I was really looking forward to that, and fortunately I couldn't make it, and you couldn't make it, and then when I heard you've been there this year, I was like, oh man, I missed it. So hopefully, I don't know if you plan on coming next year, I'd like to be able to meet you in person, Mr. Kim.
Yeah, well, hopefully we're out there. We're Dustin and I are getting very close to the end of the report from this year, which is, I believe at this point, it's 104 pages long. So it was pretty eventful. A lot of stuff happened, and a lot of the people who are there are online today. But it was very eventful. Both times I've been, a lot of stuff happened.
Yes. And the second time I went, I mean, the same thing. I mean, every time we go out there, something happens, and it seems like it had this, you know, the power of what's going on is just multiplied exponentially. Yeah. You know, it's really grown. I mean, I know Enrique says every year, oh, I'm not going to do it this year. I'm not going to do it this year, but he does, and there's always amazing results. I mean, even and I watched your interview with him this past year. His indication that most likely he saw Telos that morning. I was like, wow. You know, when I first went up there, I was like, oh, maybe I get to meet a Colosian, or maybe I get to see something like that. But to me, it's just phenomenal.
I think Marcel would back you up. Marcel, you were telling me that basically every CE5 you go to, something happens. Is Marcel here?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm sorry. Yes.
Marcel's connected. Marcel is really plugged in. I mean, this guy, I mean, every time that I've listened to him, and we come back, and you're familiar with this, you know, when we group up after whatever exercise Enrique has us does, Marcel just gives this, I don't know, really heartfelt, detailed description of something phenomenal that's happened to him. You know, and it's been wonderful watching him and Kim grow and just become so. To me, they're like icons. They're like C5 icons.
Yeah. Marcel, can you maybe talk a little bit? I know you can't get any details, but that you've actually got some technology now that you're actually using radios and having pretty regular interaction.
Yes. And first, Robert, thank you. That's very kind of you to say that. But anyways, yeah, we do have activity. Not 100% of the time we go out. It could be very, something such as flash bulbs or lights that are on the ground, but most of the time we do have contact. And I'm sorry, the question you asked me was again?
Well, related to the fact that you're starting to bring technology, like you're using a lot of camera stuff. Yeah. You're starting to bring in radios now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, at this point in time, there's somebody that's pioneered an incredible form of communication where we actually have two-way communication with several ET beings or ET races. And we're in the process, or he's in the process of trying to decipher their signatures, because each, the transmissions, based on what we send out, whether it's a Morse code or a text or pictures or even through consciousness, the response is different depending on where it's coming from, and the frequency of the sound is different. And that, he's gotten to the point where he gets a response immediately within milliseconds of the transmission. The difficult part is there's so many different frequencies coming in. I don't have the handle on this. There's other people within our groups that have more experience that are actually being able to have a common denominator as far as the code that's coming in, depending on where it's coming from. But what's really amazing is the interaction, the two-way interaction that's occurring. We used to use the tri-field meters, which I still use, and it's fantastic because it measures, electromagnetic fields that are very small, and they communicate with us by, signaling that. And I can show some video down the road of some of the transmissions that we received via the tri-field meters, but now it's via the radio. And the activity really intensifies when we're in deep meditation and the group gets really coherent. We will have multiple radios within the group. In a big Orb event, we had 5 radios. And what's fascinating is all the radios are tuned into one single frequency, but they're all receiving different signatures. So one radio will be transmitting something like a Morse code. The other one will be 4 or 5 transmissions, a pause, 4 or 5 transmissions, and so on. And every single one is different. One will be totally quiet. And what's fascinating is sometimes the radio that sends the signal receives the reception while all the other ones next to it are quiet. And that's as far as I want to get into it right now, because this has to be discussed by somebody else in our group.
Yeah, I understand. But it's encouraging just to point out to the fact that there are people like you who run around the world, work on this, on the technology, on how do you make this contact, what do we do, that we're actually getting somewhere, that we can actually reproduce what's happening.
And I'm no expert. It's really intensified. I mean, I'm brand new to this. I only started in 2015, but I would say in the last 2 years, it's really grown exponentially. And it's so satisfying to know that even if a small group, when we go out, we have activity, but I think it's a matter, and I think as Robert was alluding, it's about your inner growth, figuring out who you are and going to that level as contact with yourself. And once you let go of, all of the ego and everything else, and start really focusing on that to really try to figure out who you are inside. And you're with a group of people that are in the same mindset, things develop, and things develop quite rapidly. And I've noticed an acceleration to that contact work, whether it's through our local CE5 groups or through our national CE5 groups or international CE5 groups or the RAMA event. And the RAMA event every year has been different. It has been really profound for me personally.
And I should mention to people, we have an interview that you and I did, which Desta will be putting up shortly, and people should watch it, because in the end, you take the last 45 minutes, you take over the screen, and you go through a number of photographs and videos from experiences you've had over the years. It was pretty impressive stuff, and so people should look for that on the White House UFO YouTube channel. Probably within the next week, your video, your interview with me, which is about 2 hours, but almost the last half of the interview, you show a lot of video of stuff that has taken place.
Thank you. And by the way, I was caught by surprise and didn't really have that much ready, because the number of photographs and videos that I have that I didn't show are quite abundant. And I actually haven't gone through 100% of all my videos. So I will be happy in the future when I have the time, is to go through everything and put it out there. Because if I can enlighten other people and entice them and show them what is happening, then I've done my job. I don't hold anything back. I share everything that I possibly can get my hands on when doing the CE5, and I'll be more than happy to share any of my videos. It's just that I haven't had the opportunity to go through all of the footage.
Yeah.
Hey, Maurice? Is it Maurice?
Marcel.
Marcel.
Yes.
We use a lot of technology when we do our contact work, and we use digital recorders. And at one point, one of my colleagues was talking to an ET, just asking them to come in, please show us your technologies, saying all of this stuff. And and I'm going to play this when I do my interview with Grant, but after he says that, there's a pitch frequency shift you'll hear on the digital recorder, and it's like a higher frequency, and the voice repeats itself. It's my friend's voice, and as the voice repeats itself in a higher pitch, he's talking, saying something else to me. So his voice is overlapping that voice. So they're repeating back to him what he said previously in a higher frequency. It's really interesting. It's kind of trippy to listen to.
It's really fascinating, and the more you're into this, you realize the high strangeness of it all.
Yeah, phenomenal.
I really can't decipher everything that's going on. I'm just amazed, and people say, well, what's happening? And in reality, I have no idea. I truly don't. We're getting communication from somewhere. It's intelligent communication, but I can't tell you. Me personally, other people can. They say, well, I'm talking with the Pleiades or what have you. I can't. I just know that there's some interaction that's occurring that's absolutely fascinating. But do I know beyond a shadow of a doubt where it's coming from, what it means? At this point, no. The only thing that I get is keep doing what we're doing and keep enlightening other people with the work that we're doing. That's the message, the common denominator that I've gotten the last year and a half.
Well, they'll be coming to your home pretty soon.
Well, I'll tell you the last thing and I'll stop. They come every single night in my dream state. Every single night I am traveling. I don't know where. I have a very short memory of what transpires, but it's filled every single night. And I told Grant during the interview is I used to have this fear and the paralysis, like somebody mentioned earlier, years ago, and all that seized a couple years ago during one of the CE5 expeditions. And now, believe it or not, I actually welcome going to sleep.
Yeah, it's
a
evolutionary growth.
That's a peaceful experience, but yet it's filled with a lot of activity.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, as we noted before, the Ark of the Covenant has been opened. Or you might put it another way, which is a little scarier. Pandora's box has been opened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was curious about Marcel's when we talked earlier in this meeting. about Marcel's experience when we were up on that hill or up on the mountain. When Marcel, if you could just add what you experienced when you put your hands down. You talked about the rectangle and all that.
Are you talking about up on the mountain, Mount Shasta, or the hill where you and I and Kimberly experienced the cloud?
Well, both, but let's start with the mountain. I'm curious to see what you actually saw and felt.
Okay, well, I'll try to keep it brief, but after you came down where you guys had your experience with Vahid when you guys went up there and the rest of us, 8 or 9 of us, waited on the bottom. When we went up with you, as soon as we got to the top of the hill, and you kind of directed us to come over here, and the energy level was in this particular area. It's a very small area, and I walked up to an area that had a significant drop in elevation and topography next to the wooded area. And you said it's around here, and I just walked up there. I just sensed some energy coming from that area, and I just put my hands out in the welcoming position like I normally do. And within not even a second and a half, all of a sudden I felt a touch, and I kept saying to you guys, I was excited. I'm being touched. I'm being touched, and it started with one hand. I don't know why it's always starts with my left hand, but I felt the touch in my left hand, and then felt the second touch in the right hand. And it was a very gentle press, but it was pressing down. And because I was so excited, I was saying I'm being touched, but it wasn't really like a finger touch or a warm touch. It was like the best I can describe is a rectangular magnet, something, I don't know, like this, a rectangle, a lot smaller than this, but pressing firmly on both palms. And I'm sitting there going, oh wow, I'm being touched. And then it was pressing gently on both hands. And then right then I started seeing the little billowing light by my feet. And I had a grin from ear to ear. I go, wow, this is amazing. I go, there's a lot of energy here. I'm being touched. I could hear you guys in the background having your own experience, and but I was in a blur because it was a pretty incredible phenomenon that I was experiencing. It only lasted a couple minutes because, Jeff, you said, hey, why don't you come up here towards the wooded area? And so I thought, okay, so I broke concentration because obviously you guys experienced something else. You mentioned the zapping with the heat. So I turned around and walked towards the wooded area, but I felt nothing. It was just like, I stood there, I was very receptive, but I didn't feel anything, and it didn't last that long. So I came back to my area, and then it was gone. I didn't feel that anymore. However, when I did walk back, the little scintillating lights were on the ground. Not the billowing smoke anymore, but those little lights that we experience when we're doing contact work. Very faint on the ground.
But you saw the smoke as well, right?
Oh yeah, and it billows. It's billowed, but not as intense as when we were up on the hill with Kimberly and when I met Jeff, and I can talk about that.
Explain that. That's earlier. That's maybe 10:30 at night, where you go to get a camera lens or something.
Yeah, and this is what's really, when you try to figure the logistics out, they just kind of go out the window. But Enrique's having his session. He's deep into the discussion. We're all meditating, doing our thing, and something kept saying, "Go get your night lens. Go get your night lens." I didn't have to get it. We weren't going to leave for another hour probably, but something kept saying, go. And it got to the point where it's like, do it now. And I kept debating with myself, no, sit down. So finally I said, I got to go. And I stood up, and as I was getting up, I have a torn meniscus in a Baker cyst on my right knee. And I didn't know at that point in time, I just knew I had an injury. So I could barely walk. So I was stumbling out of the chair. Kimberly says, are you okay? I said, no. I said, could you help me? Can I use your shoulder? She said, absolutely. So she got up, and I'm using her shoulder, and we're walking up the hill, and it's a little blurry, but Jeff was there. So we got.
Hey, could I just cut in for a second here? Now, before you went up that hill, I was sitting in my chair, and I'm feeling and I'm seeing things, and the most significant things were happening right up on the hill, and I was watching that, and I was waiting for, because I didn't have a light, I was kind of waiting for an opportunity to go up there. And when I saw you two go up, I jogged up right behind you because you had a spotlight or a headlight light on, so I had some light. So I knew there was things going on in that area. I thought you guys knew it too, and that's why you're headed up there. But you guys were moving pretty quick, and by the time I jogged up, and I caught up to you guys. You were in what I considered the hot spot at the time. And because you had your light on, I didn't think you knew the significance of the spot we were in right then.
I had no, with the exception of me having that pulling energy to go get up and go get my lens, which I had no idea why at that point in time. I could have, like I said, I could have waited. I had no idea that you felt that energy. I didn't feel any energy except for the pull. But as soon as we saw you and you started saying something, all of a sudden it just like, there's something here. It just felt, I can't explain it. It was just really an incredible energy feeling. And then all of a sudden I saw this, and I thought I was running into a bush. It was like 4 feet wide and 5 to 6 feet tall. And I'm looking at it going, oh my God, what is this? And it was thick smoke, but gently billowing, like a wall of smoke. And then you and Kimberly I heard you guys in the background. Oh, I'm feeling energy. I'm feeling this. I wasn't paying attention because I was so enthralled with this wall in front of me. And again, I put my arms out. I'm like this, and I have this big grin. And then all of a sudden, the smoke forms a humanoid figure, a black silhouette. And I'm like, oh my God, we're making contact. We're making contact. And then the other side of the smoke makes another silhouette of another humanoid. I could see the head and shoulders, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then they kind of dissipate, and then they came and formed again. And then you guys were having experience, but I couldn't hear you, or I was so enthralled in that moment.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, as soon as I got up there, I knew it was there. I felt the energy, but I asked you to turn your light off, and then the energy just came piling through my head. It went all the way through my body. I had my hands out. You turned around and said, whoa, do you feel that? I don't know if you remember saying that, but and then I looked at, Kimberly says there's 2 light beams in front of me. And after that, I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything after that. So
it lasted 3 to 4 minutes. I know that you thought it was just a minute, but it wasn't. It was 3 to 4 minutes. And then what broke my concentration again was, and I didn't know who, if it was you or Kimberly, said, we have to go, we have to go.
That was Kimberly.
And as soon as she was, when she was stern about it, everything just stopped. It was like, boom, it just ended. And I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of came to, and I'm like, wow, I got to go get my lens. And then I ran up and grabbed my lens, and we walked down. The funny thing is, even though it was such an intense moment, in retrospect, when we had that experience, we walked back to the group. I don't think I shared it. I don't think we said anything unless you did. It's just kind of like, I'm sorry. That seems odd because it's such a profound event. But there was other things going around. That whole time I was there, I was observing other things too as well. So I was, just trying to see what was going to be the most significant, and that would be the direction I would go again. So I think that's the case probably with you too. I mean, those experiences are very profound, but why wouldn't you go back to the group and talk about them? It's because other things are going on. And that's, it's really, for me, it's not done yet, But the thing that bothers me a little is that I don't remember past about 30 seconds. And when you guys said it took 3 to 5 minutes up there, I'm missing a few minutes there. I don't know. And I know I may have been interacting with you guys a little bit by the sounds of it. The last thing I remember saying is, what do you see, Kimberly? And her eyes were big, wide open. And she says, I see 2 light beams in front of me. And that's all I remember. So okay, and you guys were interacting. To me, it was a blur. But I just want to add the fact that here we are in a contact group, the Rama group, or for that matter, we could have been in a CE5 group. And what I tell people when we're training people is, don't be shy. Please share any experience. No one is going to laugh at you. This is what contact work is all about. But yet, 3 of us have this, what I think now is a very profound experience, and we don't say anything. And Enrique is looking for any signs of anything, because that's what we're there for. It's like antennas to determine if anything is going to transpire. Could it have been a Zendra that was opening up? I have no idea. But the fact is, I don't know why, but we didn't share it. I regret that, and I learned my lesson. I will never do that again. I don't care how insignificant it is. I'm going to share the anomalous experience with the group from now on.
Yeah, and I can sort of add a little bit to that to share, because I'm with Jan and we're sitting in the circle, and so you're what, maybe 40 yards from us or whatever. We have no idea what's going on. We're just doing our thing, whatever. And I remember the Saturday morning, maybe we did those exercises and Kim did the Kundalini thing, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I was at an event in 2017, something happens, I'm going like, what am I doing here? This is a total bomb, this place. And they was killing me with these exercises. I'm going like, hey, so the next one is 4 minutes. We're going to hold this pose for 4 minutes. I'm going, oh, I'm getting out of here. If it had been dark, man, I would have been gone. I would have snuck away. I was just there. But when you guys started telling the stories, like Saturday morning and then Sunday morning, and it was like, wow, I just couldn't believe it. It's like, and that's the whole thing is, that's why it's important to me that I didn't have the experiences, but I was around all you guys who were having these interactions. And when we came to the report is like 105 pages long now, which details all these different events. But I would not have known anything unless you guys had spoken out. Because for me, we were just sitting there and thinking nothing was going on except for torturing us with these stupid exercises on Saturday morning.
If I can add, just for the people that weren't there, just the icing on the cake is when Enrique had his own experience at the end of the night, which is about 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the evening, and he went to use the potty john and then saw the 3 triangles, and then eventually went down to the open area and saw the incredible light, which he thinks is the city of Talos lighting up right in front of Mount Shasta. And he didn't, he was trying to get people, he didn't know where my tent was. If he would have gotten me, or Jeff, which we have the lenses and the cameras that would have captured that, we could have had a video of what supposedly could have been the city of Telos shimmering right above Mount Shasta, and it would have been the video of the century. And it didn't happen, but that occurred. There's witnesses to that, but for some reason we just didn't have the camera, the coherency to do all that stuff, because when things happen, they happen fairly quick. But if that would have been the case, this would have been the most monumental historical moment that was captured by video and by pictures.
Yeah, because that was a lot of lights. There's no lights on the mountain, and he's got the whole mountain is lit up, and he's running around in the dark trying to wake up people, and doesn't know what to do, and he can't find his camera. And it was quite the exciting weekend when you sort of put all this stuff together. But it may have all been tended. One question I want to ask you and Jeff: has anybody ever done a manual on C5 technology? It might be something to everybody to put in a chapter and online, because you guys seem to have this technology. I never knew about it until I got there. That people who are wanting to make contact with other groups, because you've got one in Michigan. Jeff, I guess you're in where? In California?
I'm in Horicon, Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin. No, it's yeah. I think it's Cameron and Peter who are in. But you have all these different C5 groups, and people are using this technology. Is there a manual that basically describes to people protocols? And
I think Celia and Mark put together a C5 manual, and I think it's quite comprehensive as far as the electronics and stuff. I think there's quite a bit of information in there, and I see that you can download it free. I bought one on Amazon. I think it was like $9 or something. But C5.
Because you guys seem to have it down to a science in terms of knowing
I don't really use the electronics that much. I use the C5ET app that's at Serious Disclosure. I use that app and transmit crop circle tones, that type of thing. But other than that, I have mostly cameras. I don't have the radios like Marcel. Marcel would know more about all that stuff, the tri-field meters and the lightning strike indicators. Those are amazing pieces of equipment. But I had to draw the line somewhere, so I didn't buy all the electronics.
Yeah, you can go broke buying that. But it's serious disclosure. Dr. Gura's got a whole list of technology that can use it, and we put our own together. But basically, it's a radar detector, lightning detector, a tri-field meter, obviously cameras, night vision. if you can afford the night vision or a really good camera, and then we have the radios. But I have a list, and I can make it available. I can publish that.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'd
Grant.
like to add a little something. I mean, I have all that gizmo stuff too, and when I showed that clip earlier, I don't know, I'm not sure if you were on or not, but we had the EMF, the trimeters, radar detectors. Nothing went off when that ship phased in. Nothing, and it was 10, 15 feet from us with cameras going. We didn't even know it was there other than the sounds. So I don't think that electronics will always tell you they're there. I think it's more of a conscious thing.
Agreed.
And in the heart, you feel it. Obviously, they've got the technology to supersede our technology, and if they don't want us to hear them through that, they're trying to connect in other ways, more spiritually. I think that's what they do. But yeah, we can use EMF meters and everything else, and sometimes it picks it up. But I don't think that that's the total approach to it. I've kind of put that aside and gone with my my heart and my mind and consciousness, and I find that more effective actually than the radar and the bleeping and the tones and all that.
Well, that doesn't mean they're not useful to a lot of people.
No, they are useful. I'm just saying that it's interesting that none of my equipment picked up that event of that ship that was 15 feet from us.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously the technology as some of these civilizations have surpasses the technology we have. And obviously if they want us to pick it up, they're going to let us. So,
I agree with you. You're absolutely right. I think consciousness is the main thing, and being in that cohesive mindset. What's really nice is to have validation. So when you're seeing something like when we were in Big Arvin, you know, that craft flashed us 68 times, is that the tri-field meters were going crazy simultaneously. The radios were going crazy. So it's like, okay, something's happening. So there's validation. So it's kind of nice to have that. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. For the RAMA event, I don't bring any technology except for the camera because they don't use that.
Right.
In our local groups we do because we are training people and say, well, this can help you, validate something. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. But it's kind of nice when all of a sudden there's activity on your tri-field meter. You're not seeing anything. Maybe you're feeling something, and your tri-field meter is going meow, 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 meow. So say, okay, you guys, 2, 3 tri-field meters are being interacted, and so in that respect, it's kind of nice to show people there's some type of anomalous activity occurring.
I agree. I think that the technology is helpful, and it helps people that are getting into the C5 world, but I think that certain civilizations just can supersede the technology that we have, and you might not pick anything up, and they could be 5 feet in front of you, and you don't even know it.
Hey, Grant.
Hey, Doug Alt. Talking about technology, you took photographs. You're a painter in New Jersey, and you've photographed. How do you relate to this? I think there's a part to this about the circus, because I had very dramatic sightings. I'm walking around with an 8mm movie camera in the 1970s, which we weren't getting anything, or like infrared 35mm and stuff. But the technology has sort of increased, and everybody wants to see the circus. That's why I'm saying watch Marcel's the interview I do with Marcel, because Marcel takes over the screen, and you get to see the circuits, and people, that's what they want to see. Show me a picture. Have you got any photographs? And I think the aliens, because I say whoever it is, they don't have to turn the lights on. They don't have to do anything. They can do whatever they want. I think part of it is they're trying to get our attention with all this weird stuff where they're doing hearing in front of the camera and stuff. So Doug, you've taken some photographs, and you're actually like right outside of New York City, right?
Yeah, I'm like, I can see the top of the Freedom Tower from my window. So I'm right across the water in Hoboken, New Jersey.
And yours are daylight, right?
What's that?
Yours are daylight photographs?
Well, yeah. I have 8 or 9 good daylight photographs that are not explainable in any kind of balloon or in that kind of sense. And then I have a good number of night vision stuff, because I have a whole great night vision setup that I took to Mexico with me. I watch from the roof in Mexico where the stars are very, very alive and bright and it's warmer and so on. But I've also gotten some amazing things here. But I wanted to, what I wanted to appeal to everybody with or jump in on, I know I got in late and I'm not I haven't been yet ever part of the Shasta group, everybody. I've kind of had my head down with my work here. But the phenomena of like forgetting time or forgetting detail and stuff, because I do know a direct witness to the Phoenix Lights. She's a hospice nurse and she came outside with all her friends that were working in the hospice the hospice center, and right over their head. And she said, I mean, it felt like you could pick something up and throw it and hit it. It was massive. This Phoenix Light ship flew right over them. And she said the most amazing phenomena about it is that once it was gone and everyone was in amazement, when everyone kind of came back in and went to work, no one seemed to have much interest in talking about it. It was almost like it got blurred out. And then last night I happened to be watching an interview from the gentleman who's doing the Ariel School movie that's coming out, and they seem to say the same thing: the time and the concentration on it, and then how. Like I say to myself, "Oh my God, I'd be wanting to talk about that for the rest of the day. I'd probably have to take off from work and go down to the local bar and find somebody to talk to." No, they don't feel that way. They feel like it's almost like a blasé malaise that everyone gets in, and the memory isn't quite clear. And so that's one of the things I wanted to mention, that would contribute to everybody. The other is, fascinating thing to me is when I was finding the objects in the sky, and I was finding them kind of quite often, it's when I was tuned into my intent to find them. And ever since I've been preoccupied with my work, and I'm not really sky watching anymore, but when the skies are clear or when I have the moment and I look, I don't see anything anymore. It's almost like I removed myself from that level, whatever it took to participate in whatever it takes to see them. And I have a feeling that if I was to gin that up again and start by intent every day to say, I'm going to see something again, I'm going to see things, I'm going to capture them, I think it would start up again. I don't know how other people feel about all of what I just said.
Can I ask you a question? What's your work? Just define what you're doing right now for people who don't know you.
I've been for the last 2 years intensely. I left all painting. I left all my artwork after doing 100 portraits of whistleblowers. I'm writing a stage musical, hopefully a Broadway musical called Hypnota, about the very topic that we're all involved in. It takes in about 5 different actual UFO events of people that I know, Chris Bledsoe being one of them, Nancy Tremaine being one of them, and a number of people that I know, and I'm blending them with other sort of stories. I'm not making anything specific. I'm renaming the characters. I'm making it my own story. It's not only a UFO story, it's sort of a blend of The Wizard of Oz meets E.T. Somebody was saying that that's what it gives them the impression of. It's more of 2 young girls who are never believed. One takes a bad road and becomes drinking. The other one becomes empowered and starts a radio blog. And when they're older, when they're in their mid-20s, and the show takes off, and the CIA are involved. I have a Ron character. I have a lot of different people in it that you'll know. Only the inside will know when they see the show. They'll know exactly who these people are. You included are in there, and it's about the determination of somebody to take science and religion, bring it together, have it meld, have all races of the world see that they're all just talking about the same thing, and that it all comes together. And there are UFO events in the show. There'll be hopefully a being or a hologram or something in the show. But it's enlightening, it's inspiring. It has nothing. There's no violence. There's not even any cursing. There's drama, and a person passes away in it based on true life story. But that's what I've been working on. It's a show called Hypnota. I hope to have it done, and it's going through revisions. I'm writing everything. I'm writing the dialogue. I'm writing the entire show, and I'm writing all the music. I'm composing all the music. I'm playing all the music. The only thing I can't do is sing. So I'm needing singers. So that's where I'm at. I'm probably about halfway. The first act is done. I'm into the second act. That's where I'm at.
Can I ask one more question, then I'll open it up for other people?
Sure.
We were talking here a bit about this sort of the nebulous, how it's sort of there, it's not there, it's not the sort of the flesh and blood thing you think with an alien jumping out of a ship or stuff like that. You've interacted with the guy who may be the top guy in the U.S. government dealing with the subject, and you've dealt a lot with his wife, and you've had conversations without getting into details. Can you sort of relate to the fact where she tells you you may not be ready for this, that it's not as physical as people think it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I have a fascinating relationship with the Pandolfis. Katerina is on. I'm sure she's right there, and she would understand this. And Princess and I talk every day. It's gotten to be that point. It's not like UFO talk. It's her child's schooling and attitudes about life. She takes a big interest in my show. She knows what I'm working on. We talk about gardening. We talk about everything. And since I'm so close to Princess, I think that that certainly helps in Ron's, wanting to keep her happy. And, I'm one of the people that is her best friend now. We're really, really good friends. Ron's, of course, an enigmatic person to know, very, very difficult to know because I just can't go, hey, Ron, what'd you do today? He's not going to. He can ask me about my art and my music, but I can't say how did the drone strike go. I'm not getting into any of that stuff, and I almost don't want to know. But I think that's what I became a little bit more like, Grant. It's almost like you remember the thing Ron wrote about the keys,
yeah.
And he wrote that to about senators and politicians. It's almost like I don't know that I want to have the responsibility of knowing about certain things, because I don't want something to be out on the web among all my friends in our community. And it's like Doug Hall said this, and it was against his wishes. But at the same time, I look for the crumbs to come off the table, I think I described, and there are enough things that make me fascinated with the thing. One of the things Ron saying many years ago is that the phenomena is real. He didn't spell out what it was. Ron will tell you a lot of things are fake, and he'll tell you a lot of things are phony. And again, we've had to come to the decision of what we mean by fake, because it may just be that the sound is not authentic. The visual that you're looking at is actually real, but because the sound was dubbed in or done by somebody else or something was altered, it can go under the category of fake. And so just saying, oh, that's a scam, or that's fake, or that's not real, doesn't really explain the whole story. And I think you and I have discussed this. So I've kind of, Princess talked to me about DNA and time travel in related to your DNA, that your DNA goes back many, 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 thousands of years, and that DNA is in you then and could be enacted in your child today. And that's a sort of a transference or a time travel, but we really haven't gotten very deeply into it. I hope to get a little bit more involved in this conversation with them this weekend when I go to see them.
But she has indicated that it's a lot more complex than your.
Yes.
She basically says, I can't really explain. You're not really ready for this yet.
Yeah, well,
that's coming from a person who may have an insight what's going on.
Yeah, and I think, and Ron has on his own just said right in front of me, she's not from here. And I know he didn't mean Maryland. He said no, and he said Kashmir is not from here. He's told me that. So I don't see a reason why he'd be saying this is fake and that's fake, and Elizondo's this and this one's that and Tom DeLonge's this, and then making stuff up about his own family. I mean, where's the benefit to it? I don't know. So it's all pretty enigmatic to me, and he'll always be a person that I can't quite get that. I don't want to start becoming that person that goes over there and trying to capture him and corner him for some sort of scoop. I'm not relating to him like that.
Yeah, you're in a bad position. Yeah.
One could say.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions for Doug? Or there's one video I want to show because we're closing in on the end here. I'll take over the screen. We were mentioning this thing with Alfred was showing orbs in his room and then this orb coming directly at him. And I should have invited Jim. He's actually from my city here. This is a story. I'll give you the background on the story. This guy had a lot of orbs. He was photographing in his room, these orbs flying around all the time, and he was showing me another orb one. And then he suddenly lets me know that he's got cancer. He's got this big growth on his neck, and he's got to go for a biopsy, I think, on the Monday, or the operation. No, I think it was the operation. Go Monday, and on the weekend, he films this object. And I say, are you talking to it? Are you actually sort of praying for whatever phenomena you are to interact with you? And he said, yeah, I am. So what this happens about Sunday morning, early in the morning, and here's this orb flying. You'll see this orb flying around his room, and it actually goes into his body here. So I'll play this maybe twice here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Into his body. So you see it comes down the wall into his clothes. He said he was kind of embarrassed that his clothes were all crunched up in the room, just threw his clothes against the wall. So here he's going to show it in slow motion. You'll see it coming down the wall between the two closets. Goes into the clothes. And here it comes up, and he's filming with his cell phone camera. He's filming this thing. And it goes directly into his body. And so then he, later on in the morning, he actually goes and he is in the bathroom, and he suddenly realizes this big growth is on the back of his neck is gone.
Wow.
So he goes to the doctor, the oncologist, on the Monday, and they're doing the operation or whatever they're doing, and he says, the doctor says, what happened? He said, it went away. And he said, what do you mean it went away? It doesn't just go away. And he said, yeah, I think it sort of went away Sunday morning. The oncologist they actually did the biopsy, and they pulled out 3 nodes that were non-cancerous, but all the swelling and everything was gone. And then he went to his regular doctor, who he'd actually gone to before, because he actually ended up at one point with a Y cut into his head, into the crown of his head. It was really weird, blood all over the place. And he said to me, why would they cut my head? Why would they do this? And I said, I don't know, maybe they were trying to get your attention. You didn't want to pay attention, so they did something you could not possibly deny. He cut this Y into the top of his forehead. He wakes up and his hands are all wet. He's going, what's going on? He went and looked in the bathroom and finds this Y cut to his forehead. And so he had gone to the doctor. He didn't go to get it stitched up, but he went to the doctor and he told the doctor his whole story. So after this thing where this big growth disappears and this cancer is gone, he goes to his regular doctor, and then he tells the doctor what happened, and the doctor says, let's see the video. And then he shows the video, and then the doctor says, show it again, let's see it again. So he didn't convince the oncologist, but he did convince the doctor. It's a very, very bizarre story. You were just mentioning this thing. But this guy had these orbs, and I think he's probably still doing these videos, but he had these orbs flying around his bedroom all the time. And I've seen them. There's a woman in Cuba had the same thing, where she has a night vision camera. And I think even, Doug, you were getting these orbs at one point with your camera.
Yeah, well, you know what? I had bought a remote camera that goes off at night, a night vision camera when I'm sleeping. I happen to be sensitive to EMFs, so I decided to get rid of the camera, because I set up my house now where I shut my Wi-Fi, I shut my electricity, I shut everything on the computers. So when I sleep much more rested. I'm one of those people that picks up a sensitivity to 5G and EMFs my town has gone 5G now. And so I'm just trying to cut all that stuff out. But when I did have it, Grant, I think, I'm not trying to tell you I'm right or wrong. I did show it to some people. I started to think maybe it's just dust. And I can say this, that dust will produce some of these effects. But that gentleman's blue orb there, that's not dust. That's quite something. And there's an inner light coming from that. That's very, very different than when you're picking up some dust particles in your room that are just getting lit by the ambient light or everything. At least that's my interpretation of it. It looks very different. Paul, I think someone has a hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
Grant, I wanted to follow up the story about the blue orb, the healing orb. When
Okay.
I was in dentistry, and I think it was about 1979. I was in practice for a few years, and I was in my operatory. I was on the 3rd floor of a 3-story building, and I had this horrible headache. Well, I don't get headaches. I thought, well, I'll just take a nap and maybe go home and it'll be fine. So I closed the office up and sat on my dental chair, lay down in my dental chair. And a little bit later, I mean, I kind of dozed off, and then I was awakened. There were 2 beings in my room behind me in the dental chair. And I'm saying, like, well, what are you guys doing here? And they said, well, we see that you have a headache. And I said, well, yeah, I do have a horrible headache. And they said, well, just a second, let me do something. Well, they produced this rod about this long. It was a rod with several different things on it. And they waved it over the head from behind me. They waved it over my head. And they said, well, the reason you have a headache is because you have a brain tumor. And I said, well, that's just dandy. That's just great. And they said, not to worry. And so they did something with this, did some adjustments on this thing. They waved it over again. The headache goes away. And they said, there, it's gone. So I said, that's fantastic. Well, being in the medical field, I said, where can I get one of those? Those are just fantastic. They said, well, we'll send you one. And I said, well, where do you live? And they pointed up. Well, I was on the 3rd floor of a 3-story building. And then I went to sleep. I woke back up. Office was still all locked up. The place was all dark. I'm still waiting for him to send it, but I think maybe it comes in the blue orb form now. That's what I'm thinking. But it was an amazing event for me, and I just wanted to share that.
Well, thanks for sharing. That's fascinating. There's actually, as you maybe know, there's actually a book that was written by Preston Dennett about UFO healings. And in the book that was put out by the Free Foundation, Joe Burks actually produced a chapter on healing. 50% of all experiencers claim they can either heal people or they've been healed. And Chris Bledsoe, who we talked about earlier in the show, had one of the more dramatic ones. When he had his experience in 2007, he was suffering from chronic Crohn's disease. He was taking 14 pills a day. And he has this encounter. And he had actually had a near-death experience. He had to sell his business. He said, if you don't sell your business, you're dead. And he sold his business. He actually was in bed for a year. His wife sold the business. She was advising, he was lying in bed. And so he has this encounter with 5 witnesses and have all these aliens and stuff flying around and stuff like that. He gets home and there's a being outside the window. And then there's another being there. And he goes to his father's house next door and he says, there's beings walking around, and his father says, Chris, you're having a bad night. Go back to bed. You're drinking. He said, no, Daddy, I'm not drinking. He said, you're having a bad night. Go back to bed. And he said, well, his dad and he had his son with him who was also traumatized, had been involved in this event. And they go to the middle of this field, and they sit in the middle of this field, a cornfield, because they're afraid because these beings are walking around the house. And he said, that's the point. He said to his son, he says, Chris, I got my pills. I got my pills. Said that was 2007, and going from chronic Crohn's disease, near-death experience, in bed for a year, he never took another pill from that night he sat in the cornfield. So you do get these bizarre situations where they come in and they do this kind of stuff. Or there's an experience that I don't know if you heard the story of Steve Boucher, who he's not on today, but Steve Boucher shows an instrument. He has his event in 2007. The entire band is abducted. And then in the 1980s, Susie Hansen, who's an experiencer who's written a couple of really good books out in New Zealand, has the same experience. And what they do is they have a machine almost like yours, and they take it and they put it over his arm, and it produces sort of a green light on his arm, and they can see the veins in his arm. And then they sort of change it, and they can see all the muscles. And then they change it again, you can see all the bone. And he sees this thing, and in the 1980s, Susie Hansen is shown exactly the same instrument. She describes it. So he's in Toronto, where we're going next week to this conference. She's giving her, I said, tell him the story about this instrument or whatever. He goes up, She's in the audience, and she just falls over. She says to him, "I need to talk to you. I need you to go on camera." We saw the same thing. That equipment is now public. It's not with the muscles and the bones, but it is the veins. They now have this technical. It's got something to do with reading the heat in the veins, and they can actually now use this green light, put it on your arm, and they can actually see the veins in your arm. So you can see this technology. It's almost like they're sort of giving you a hint of where it's going or what they can do. Fascinating.
Hey, Paul, are you a doctor?
I'm a dentist, retired.
Oh, okay. I wanted to mention something real quick before I had to go and before everything stops. Has anybody on this meeting today know the near-death experience of Anita Murjani?
Yeah.
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 Okay, so I just watched it again recently, and she had tumors and cancer and was given 24 or 48 hours to live, and it was all over for her. And she had went into a coma. Her husband was there, everything like that. She traveled. She saw her elders. They told her she lacks self-love, that she's created the cancer. She's created the cancer by not accepting herself for being exactly who she is, not thinking she's good enough, not thinking she's this and that. And somehow in this whole corrective process, she returned, and these tumors all disappeared. By her next examination, they were all gone, and she was back to normal health. And it's quite a riveting story. I just thought I'd mention that to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
Fascinating. It's interesting. I think is it true that Vahid is a dentist? Can you confirm that? Is Jeff still here?
His mic is blocked.
Oh, okay. Because I believe that Vahid is a dentist too. So it's kind of weird when you said you're a dentist. It was
Yeah, I didn't know that Vahid was a dentist. I didn't know what he did for a living.
Unless there's somebody else with a similar name, a longer sort of name. But anyway, the healing thing is very interesting. I even said to Preston Bennett, because I've got a bunch of cases, for example, the guy with the blue orb, I said, Preston, if you're ever doing a second book, I'll give you some cases. So we'll even take Paul's story and we'll maybe put these in a second edition. But I think he had 110 healings that had been related to UFOs. You always hear this stuff with, and this is something I can mention. You always hear this stuff about the evil aliens and they're zapping people and they're doing all this kind of stuff. There's now this story that Kit Green, who got the disability for John Burroughs, apparently now is sort of indicating that all the injuries that they have are related to black ops technology, and that it takes it away from this idea that John Burroughs was sort of injured by some sort of thing. It's the old idea that you see a lot more healings than you do the sort of the injury type things.
I can believe that. Yes. Good.
In 2015, I had the pleasure of meeting a retired orthopedic surgeon in Vero Beach, Florida, when I had an expedition with Dr. Greer. His name is Dr. Charles Crosby, and he claimed that he cured Steve's wife, Emily Greer, from stage 4 cancer with a device that he developed from plans that an extraterrestrial gave him in his sleep. And he drew this, and he uses some type of quartz crystal and some electrical device, and he actually sells this. He's out of Florida, and I don't know if he said he had to go to Ecuador or someplace, but he actually says that he got these devices from ET, and he's actually cured people from stage 4 cancer many occasions. He's got a website. If you look up Charles Crosby in Orlando, Florida, you'll find his website. Just I throw that in there.
I'll give you another one. If you Mark Olson was on earlier. I think he's left now, but Mark introduced me to a guy who was sort of watching Chris Bledsoe fairly closely. If you read the book American Cosmic by Diane Pasulka, she talked about him. She refers to him as Tyler D. He's a NASA engineer. I know who this guy is. He had a download experience as an engineer, and this is it's a medical technique, and he wanted to put it on the space shuttle, and he told me, I had a private conversation with him, and I'm into downloads, I'm into people getting ideas and stuff, and he said he had sold his company for huge money. You just fall over and you hear how much he sold his company for, but he said, I'll tell you what, most of it came from this one idea that he got, and he wanted to put on the space shuttle. And in that book, Diane Pasulka talks about him getting this idea, and that he gets called to Washington, and this general stands up and he said, "Who came up with that? Who came up with that idea?" And they all pointed to this guy, and he thought he was going to get an award or whatever. But what it was a medical technique that he made huge money from. He told me, he said, "Grant, I'll tell you what. When that idea came into my head in the morning when I woke up, the last thing I remember the night before was a hooded figure standing at the bed." And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Could you see his face?" And he said, "No, I couldn't see his face." And I said, "Oh, you should go to Regress. You go to Los Angeles all the time. You should see him on 5th." And he sort of agreed that he might do it. In the book, if you read the book American Cosmic, she talks about him. He actually has a protocol, same as, if you know this guy Gary Nolan, who does the DNA stuff was doing it for To the Stars and with Kid Green and stuff. He talks about it as well, where he says, "I don't know how this process works." He says, "I don't know what's happening, but I know how it works." He says he gets the question in his head, he puts the question out, he puts it beside his bed, gets everything sorted out, he goes to bed and wakes up in the morning and the idea's in his head. And this Tyler D guy who's doing all the medical stuff, he's got 40 medical patents. And the way he does it, he says he's got a different technique. He says, "I go to sleep for 8 hours at night, I get up, and then I go to bed again, or then I get up, then I get a big glass of water, and I go out and I sit in the sun and I drink this glass of water." And he actually believes he is actually interacting with beings who are giving him these medical inventions. So you can see that there are people in touch, and I maintain, whether it's on the people that are here today or the people that like Tyler D, there are people who are interacting and who are getting material that can help us. And I think it behooves us to listen carefully to the people who say they're having contact.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, and I wanted to
go ahead.
Share as well. So I'm born and raised in Belgium, and I had a abduction, I don't know how to call it, but I was taken to a foreign place, metal, like doctor's environment, and I was dealing with praying mantises who were above me and poking in my body. So I have those experiences through my youth. And then through synchronicities, Paul and I, our lives came together. That we couldn't deny anymore all the synchronicities, so we knew we had to be together. And it was only after we married and I moved from Belgium to America that we started talking, and we started to exchange our experiences, and everything came. I mean, we have together so many experiences, so we are still exploring where that's going, and now we're starting to share our stories. So that's the.
Wow, maybe I can do an interview with you sometime. You can actually go through your story, because I like to put the stories out for people, that because I think it helps other people. I almost call it like Alcoholics Anonymous, where you have experiences that are coming forward, and there are other people who are sitting there and really think they may be going crazy, or they don't really know what's going on. And once they hear somebody else's story, they go, "Oh, okay." It gives them validation that they have a real experience, and it may mean something valuable.
Right. And that's what we're doing. So we're actually just sharing it by emails. I do it in 2 languages, in Dutch and in English. I'm sending it out all over the world, and people come back with their own experiences, and they tell me, well, I've never told anybody, but because they see I give myself permission, they come back with their stories, and I think that's valuable.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm glad you're doing it. It's like Peter, who I invited him here, didn't come, but he was at Mount Shasta. He has the famous expression, "Closets are for clothes." So we'll leave it at that. The next event will be on October the 5th. So anybody that wants, we will give you an invite. And if you know of somebody else who's an experiencer who might be able to share from this, you can pass them the link, invite them along, and we'll do this again on October the 5th.
Thanks.
All
Eric.
right.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
man.
Thank you, everybody,
Thank
for
you very
showing up.
much.
And now Desta
Thank
can
you.
go collect her $1 million. See you, Desta.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Namaste.